So I will invite Dr. JoAnn Hurd to come up and review some of where we are academically.
Well, good evening. It is truly a pleasure to be back here with you again. And may I begin by saying congratulations to a Board of Education who has the courage and the convictions to allow this process to begin for the children of this community. Thank you, members of this Board of Education, and to a superintendent who chooses to lead on behalf of children, because this whole process should be about kids. An administrative team who's here to support the process as we go through this. And to a community who chooses to come out tonight with all other things that might be going on, to hear, listen, learn, and be able to support or give feedback to what needs to happen. I'm very privileged to have been here during the time when you were looking for a superintendent, and I had the opportunity to facilitate several forums, a parent evening. I met with the administrative team. I had the opportunity to meet with preschool and with a couple of the elementary schools, and I was impressed by what I heard. The one thing that resonated in every situation was, when you're looking for that new superintendent, we have a strategic plan, and we want someone who's going to support our strategic plan. I heard that everywhere. I was even dreaming about it. Also, the other component that came from that was that we are concerned, and we want to make sure that our superintendent has the courage to address the equity concerns that might exist in our building, and that we bring equality to all children. I heard that from every forum that I had the privilege to sit down with and facilitate. So tonight, we're going to share your data with you. This data comes from my school data, and for those of you who after tonight would like to go back and do some research and look at this on your own, you can go to myschooldata.org and take a look at this and see. And I'm very pleased to be able to begin by looking at your high school ACT result. And as I look at your high school, looking at the trend data, when I go back to 2009, I see your students were performing in that. This probably has one of those things on it, right? Those red. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Okay. 17.8%. And yet, when I look at you at 2013, where the error is, your high school is performing at 19, score of 19 on the ACT. So what does that say? Well, based on the data, 18% of your kids met or exceeded the standards, the requirements for the ACT, but 81.9 did not. Again, 19 is a very good score, and I think as you continue, you're doing something right because you're showing improvement and increases every year. And so continue on that trajectory, because that will truly continue to focus you that you may continue to show success there. Normally, one would start with the high school to begin to show how you fare with students. But I'm starting with the middle school, and all the slides that you will see tonight will be your 2013-14 data for how your students perform. But we've selected one target because, again, what I heard during the time that we were here is you're concerned about those kids who are your bottom 30%. What are we doing with those kids? What are we doing for those kids? And so tonight I'm going to show you how those kids fare in your community. Beginning with Ferndale Middle School, as you look at that group of students, there is approximately 60% of students who are identified as economically disadvantaged at that school. And yet, when you look how they have performed against all the other middle schools in Oakland County, you can see that they're about the 21st, 22nd percentile. Not very strong. But as we look at that, we realize there's room for improvement there, and there's work to be done. But this, when you see that result, that comes from those students and how they might have performed in elementary school leading to that middle school. So it isn't just what the middle school has done. As I look at Ferndale High School, now these are the same middle school kids who matriculate to Ferndale High School. When I look at how Ferndale High School has performed, as I look at the students who are about the 50th percentile in terms of, about 59th percentile of all the schools in Oakland County, but with about 54% poverty, 54% economically disadvantaged student. Can you see how during the high school, those students have improved? So what is that telling us? It's telling us that something is happening with those students from the time they leave middle school to the time that they do get to the high school. However, 60 is not where you want to stay. And so when you look at those students, so again, attention and emphasis must be put on looking at who those kids are in the bottom 30% of your population, those students who are identified as economically disadvantaged. And what are we going to do to improve them so that they bring up the whole performance of students at your high school? Because when your bottom students come higher, then of course all of your whole school benefits from that. University High, there was a bit more, few more students there who were economically disadvantaged. Approximately 70% of the students there are economically disadvantaged. But yet, when you look at how they have performed at about the 53rd percentile, meaning that they scored higher than about 53% of the schools that are in Oakland County. As we look at that again, I would hope that our school district is going back and looking at disaggregating data and looking at the factors that might cause that. While it's a strong score, there's a lot of room for improvement there. And again, with resources and attention given to that population, you surely can improve those kinds of results. Roosevelt Elementary School. Roosevelt Elementary School has almost 60th percentile ranking, which means that they rank higher than 60% students in all of Oakland County. However, their percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged is about 65th percentile, 65%. That's a very strong number. And yet, when you look at that slide, you look at, as we go to the left, you look at the number of schools who have less economic diversity, but yet who are not scoring as high as the students at Roosevelt Elementary. Is there work to be done there? There sure is. And so one would want to go back and look at not just one set of data as I'm showing you tonight. You want to look at multiple resources to make sure that you've dug deeply to see what are some of the root causes of this data being as it appears. This is Coolidge Elementary. Coolidge Elementary scores slightly above the 20th percentile, which means that they score higher than 20% of all the elementary schools in Oakland County. Yet, again, a very high level of students who are identified is economically disadvantaged. I would say work needs to be done here. One needs to dig deeper and take a look and see what are some of the factors that might be causing this kind of performance from that population of students. One might choose not to just look at economically disadvantaged. There are other subgroups that one looks at on the test, the MEP test that students have taken. So might it be go back and looking at your gender issues, looking at English language learner student, looking at special education student, looking at how did your different ethnic groups perform on this particular assessment. And so with that, there's work to be done. When I look at this, I would say, this is where resources need to be allocated, because if this is one of your lowest performing schools, resources and materials or whatever needs to be there and programmed to support those students to help to lift them up. Because again, when Coolidge scores comes up, the scores in Ferndale comes up. This is a school which had a lot less diversity than the other schools that we've had a chance to take a look at. When I look at the number of students at the JFK Elementary School, it appears that the students rank in about the 25% of the students are identified as economically disadvantaged. Their score ranges in about the 60th percentile. But this would, again, cause one to take a look at, when you're looking at the quadrant to my right, there are students who are showing higher poverty who are performing higher than some of the students, than that group of students. And so the cluster for those elementary schools with students with that level is very high in that left quadrant. So I would say attention needs to be given there as we look at probably curricular issues and other kinds of things that's just beyond, not just economically disadvantaged, but to dig deeper and look at factors that might have impacted that level of score. Also, I think, again, why is there looking at what might be done about the lack of the equity issues in terms of this particular school as well. When I look at comparing the two schools, Roosevelt and JFK, to economically disadvantaged districts around you, it appears that Ferndale District, which is about a little under 60%, and Roosevelt, which is a little over, are more aligned. There's a discrepancy there, and that causes one to take me back to your strategic plan and questions that you might want to ask or address in terms of equity. Is there equity when you look at this kind of discrepancy? JFK is more aligned to, it appears, Royal Oak and Berkeley when you look at, you're comparing it to the surrounding schools. This might be a little squiggly and hard to understand, but as we look at the purple represents the school JFK, the blue represents a school called Roosevelt. And when you look at that, there's students who test in third grade, which those are the students who would have had their education up to third grade. So they're testing from their K1-2, and this is how they have performed. So after third grade, those students have made a large move in fourth grade to having shown significant improvement. But then for the next 5 and 6, we begin to see a decline. And this is for students who are identified in reading who are disadvantaged. And so again, as a district, those are areas where it appears that they're declining pretty much at about the same rate, but your students who at a school who just scored very high is scoring, your disadvantaged students are not scoring as high at your JFK school. Let's move over to reading for the advantage, and that's the right side of the screen. And as I look at those students, they kind of ebb and flow in the same direction. Again, education strongest in that fourth grade year. So something's happening in third grade that's kind of good, folks, so keep that in mind. But then there becomes a decline after that. And when I look at that decline happens for Ferndale, it happens for Roosevelt, and it happens for your students at JFK after that third grade year. And that's of your advantage students. So again, you want to go back and take a look and use other disaggregate data to find out what's happening there and what might we do to be able to make those kinds of corrections. Math. As I looked at your trend data, it appears that math has not been a strong area for the district for a while. And so this slide tells us a similar kind of a story. And one thing that I didn't say, when you see the purple for the school that's at JFK, that those bottom numbers at 0, it didn't mean they had 0. It just meant they did not have a population large enough to be measured on this scale, okay? So, so when you look at 5th grade, there was a large enough population at 5th grade, so you had a significant response there. But then you had a significant dive after 5th grade. So what's happening in that 5th grade year would be something you'd want to look at. But also when I look at the disadvantaged students in Roosevelt, JFK and Roosevelt are about the same level when you look at their 6th grade year. When I look at the advantaged students, again, as I look at the math, they ebb and flow together, and so as they continue to decline after that 4th grade year. In 6th grade, something is happening there. So I think as a curriculum department and as teachers, you're looking at that already. I know it's not something that's new to you. It's data that you've been interacting with. The community might not have seen this. So we know that that's an area that needs to be addressed because there is that decline in that 4th through 6th grade year. And again, as you move toward becoming that high-performing district that you said to me that you wanted to become, those are the kinds of issues that will need to be addressed as you move forward. This is interesting. Ferndale services about 61% of eligible fourth graders, four-year-olds rather, in preschool. And so as you look and you compare yourself with all the other districts that are there, it's important for us to realize there's an untapped market out there that we may want to take a look at. Having come from a district where a lot of emphasis was put on educating preschool, oftentimes when we get those kids in preschool, they will stay with us. And so there needs to be, you may want to look at what might be that aggressive campaign and where might you find the space and accommodation to be able to support your preschool population, because that could be the gift that keeps on giving during a time when there's declining enrollments across our state. So only 61% serviced in our current program of preschoolers, but currently the funding that you get for your preschool is about $800,000. It's costing you $1 million. So what does that say? It's an area of concern, and are there ways of looking at that and being able to help to make a difference? As we kind of consolidate the academic goals, again, I think it's very important that we look at the math gap that exists in the elementary school. Looking at how we might provide opportunities to be able to close the achievement gap, the opportunity gap, providing equity, which is one of the 3 legs in your strategic plan, to be able to facilitate. Being very cognizant that your middle year's growth between grades 4 and 6 are causing concern. What needs to happen there to be able to address those concerns? To increase preschool enrollment, again, that's the population that might stay with you, that might allow you to continue to improve your numbers down the road. Because once you get in a comfortable place, parents will oftentimes stay there. And I think most important of all, based on your strategic plan, the focus must be on quality education for all, A-L-L, all the children in the Ferndale School District. I'd like to just close this evening, if I may, with a quick summary. Tonight's presentation was a snapshot. It was not the total picture because we did not use multiple measures. It surely is a snapshot of the work that needs to be done. And again, as you look at multiple measures, your staff will be able to find what things might be needed, what might need to be done to be able to correct some of the information that we have the opportunity to see tonight. You have a solid strategic plan. It is important that you not lose sight of all the work you put in to developing that. And at the very end, I like to say, to meet all the students, the district must continue to focus on achievement, equity, and the ability to sustain the work that you've done. We wish you the very best, and thank you very much.